That was so beautiful. Thank you, Melody, and thank you for everyone, all of the music that led up to where we are now. Good morning. Welcome home. So we have been talking about the hero's journey all month long. We started with a wonderful beginning of that topic with Reverend Cliff sharing his personal experience of being on one, right? Being called to Edmonton, Alberta, CSL in Canada. And we had some wonderful talks from Reverend Sonny after that also about this topic. And I have the pleasure, I'm Reverend Marcia MacLean, in case you don't know that, of wrapping it up, of recapping the hero's journey and talking about a very special part of it, which is coming home. Actually coming home. So we're going to take a look at that a little bit together this morning. So I made a graphic, which I borrowed most of it from an unnamed instructor who had put this out on the internet. I absolutely love this topic. First of all, we're going to talk today about the meaning of home. We're also going to talk about the components of this journey. And this idea that understanding what home really is, as well as understanding the nature of this hero's journey, is really what our lives are about. That those two understandings are going to help us to make the most and experience the most of being at home, as well as equipping us for the times when change knocks on our door and it's time to step back out into the world away from home and grow a little bit more, find a little bit more, learn little bit more. So one of the things is this idea that we know quite well. We've heard it in many different sayings. That is that sometimes we need to let go of something in order to have it. We need to be non-grasping in order to achieve enlightenment. We need to set something free in order to receive it. We've heard sayings of that sort from all over throughout our lives. So the paradox about home is that we get to leave it in order to truly find it. That's how I wanted to tie those two things together. That sometimes we get to leave home in order to make the experience of being there better. We've got to go on a little bit of a hunt. So, imagine this then, that home is not a place, but a state of mind, which shapes how we experience all places. So the title of today's talk from the theme is Welcome to Your Dream Home. So what would your dream home be? I want to suggest that our dream home is still a state of mind rather than a place. And yet it is an ideal state of mind, which brings out the very best in these experiences and these potentials and these possibilities which are always awaiting us. So when I say, welcome to your dream home, I'm suggesting that there is a state of mind, a potential for it within you, and examples of it all around you on your journey that give you and me an opportunity to experience the very best of both home itself, of being home in the world wherever we may be, like the song says, and also of that journey. When we think about home in terms of where we grew up, for some of us, it may have been in one house, in one place. For me, it was until I was 19 and went off to school. For some of us, it was, you may have moved every year for whatever reason, employment or the military, you might have moved a lot. So that has no bearing on your idea of home. For some of us, our experience may have been ideal, and for some of us, it wasn't. In either case, that hero's journey in this lifetime probably began with your first realization that there just might be more than this. Perhaps initially you ventured away from your caretakers, your parents, or whoever raised you. Perhaps your world got bigger when you got a bicycle. Your world got bigger still when you rode on the school bus, and your world got bigger still when you traveled away from home for longer periods of time. Right? So this hero's journey always starts with this idea that there must be something more. There must be something more. And we have this awareness, and it just moves us to find out more about that. So once we say yes to this idea, we embark on the journey. We say yes. It's as if change rang the doorbell and said, hello, anybody there? Want to go for a ride in the car? Right? Change rang our doorbell. Something called us, excuse me, to go in search of more. There are a few teachers that I love to cite who have written some things about this. Some of them are contemporary, and some of them come from the roots of the New Thought movement. So one of them is Irvin Seal. Any of you take a metaphysical Bible class or simply read the works of Irvin Seal? Very interesting. What he says in there about the metaphysical interpretation of the 10th commandment, which is about coveting your neighbor's stuff, is that even though when we realize that someone has something that we don't have, and a desire arises within it. Is my microphone not working?
It's having issues. It's clipping.
Okay. All right. Oh, I've got one thing in each hand now. That's interesting because I can hear me. Okay. How's that? All right. So the hero's journey also requires us to be adaptive, doesn't it? Yes. Okay. So Irvin Seal says that feeling that, wait a minute, you have something that I didn't even know existed and now I want it, is what drives us forward. I'm sure that I've spoken about this before. So it's really not all bad. It can be if we hang out in envy and jealousy and separation. Those of you, modern spiritual students know this concept of separation. We believe that we're separate from our good, but maybe you've got it, or you have it, or you have it, and I got to get it from you. That's not so. So when we have this feeling that we've just discovered that something exists that we would like to have and we don't have it yet, it moves us forward. It's one of the things that calls us out the door seeking more. So Irvin Seal suggests, and the book is called 10 Words That Can Heal Your Life. He suggests that what we can do instead is realize that is a source of inspiration to go looking for that thing for ourselves. We often get caught up in admiration of others who are doing something amazing, and we overlook the fact that they awaken something in us that is ready to become, ready to be activated, ready to be real. That's the call on the hero's journey. Another one is Eric Butterworth, a unity minister from the very early times of that movement. He talks about divine discontent. Divine discontent is that realization, it's that friction again between where we are now, which is home as we know it, and this sense that more is possible. There's got to be more than this. And that discontent is a sort of friction, a sort of agitation. It's a perfect part of our experience. This is the perfect part between hanging out at home where everything is familiar and realizing, I got to step out the door because I just became aware of this thing and now home doesn't look quite right to me. Another famous one, which comes from the history of metaphysics, is from H. Emily Cady, and it's called chemicalization. It's this idea that when we introduce truth to, let's say, a persona that has been based on falsehood and the life of that person, the first thing that happens is that everything that is resistant to it comes up. You may have been approached by someone who said, "Oh, congratulations. That's whatever is not the truth of you coming up to be healed." So Emily Cady says, not to worry, there's something perfect going on. At first, when you introduce truth to falsehood, there will be agitation. She said it's like pouring vinegar into sour milk, or one of those science experiments with the baking soda and the vinegar. Just all this bubbling and churning and stuff. Not to worry, don't give up. Use your denials regarding what is false, and your affirmations follow regarding what is true, and carry on. She says that you will be elevated to a dimension of living and a level of experiences which you have never had before. Brighter experiences. What does this have to do with the hero's journey? Well, when you step out the door and you pass the point of no return, you encounter struggle and a mountain and immediately think, "Oh, maybe I should turn back. This was a bad idea." Don't do that. Use your denials of what is false. Use your affirmations of what is true and carry on, because there's more. I have another favorite one, which actually is from a contemporary scientist and organizational psychologist. Anybody know Margaret Wheatley? Meg Wheatley. Okay, she has a book among many called Leadership in the New Science. And she explains that entropy is simply a point where a system reaches equilibrium and it has exhausted all of its possibilities in that current form, and it's time for it to fall apart. So there could be that moment where home as you knew it it doesn't quite feel right anymore. It's falling apart. It's time to go out the door and bravely pursue that idea of something new that you don't know much about, but it's calling you. What happens is that all of the elements of that old form become available for a new pattern. This is a good thing. Again, if we keep our eyes on the prize and we keep moving. Also, Raymond Hollywell, another one from the early New Thought movement and times with Ernest Holmes. There's a book called Working with the Law. And in there, it says that the metaphysical definition of desire is that it arises when conditions are ripe for its fulfillment. That's really different from our normal experience of wanting. When we realize that a desire arises simultaneously with everything necessary for its fulfillment, we might feel a little more encouraged and confident about moving out of the door of home when change beckons us, when the idea of greater possibility and more is calling us. There are so many people who have taught on this subject from every walk of life, from every philosophy and every teaching. That's why it's called the universal monomyth, the hero's journey. So what calls us away from home? Some of the things that call us away from home are these possibilities. Sometimes the call comes rather suddenly, doesn't it? It could be a natural disaster, a weather event. It could be a diagnosis. It could be a new love relationship possibility. It could be dissatisfaction with where you're living or where you're working. You see, it could be, as Michael Beckwith says, some kind of a push by pain, or it could be a pull by a vision. But either way, that time inevitably comes. Our lives, right down to every single day, are a hero's journey. An opportunity to do something when that voice says, there's got to be more than this. So I want to tell you a little story. This is a very special story. Can you see that picture okay? And if you are one of the other two women in this picture that I don't know, please tell me. So back in about 97, when the center was 2 years old, I think, a handful of us went to a workshop, a weekend retreat for women with Edwene Gaines. Myself and, tell me who that is, Barbara, Christy Corna, and another woman. I think on Facebook we figured out almost all of those names. And of course, we were introduced to fire walking there, which eventually came back here. And we were encouraged to say this chant when we did this fire walk. And that was something like this. Open your mind, see what you find, bring it on home to your people. Open your mind, see what you find, bring it on home to your people. It was a commitment. It was a willing commitment to step out on that journey and to bring what we found back home to our people. So I wanted to share that because it reminded me of this beloved image here and this wonderful memory. So here we are looking at the map of our hero's journey again. Now this is the point. You know how when we've said we're going to step out the door, we're accepting that change is possible, we're going to go for it, we're going to leave the comfort of the familiar and home and check that out. Then we reach this thing called the point of no return. In for a penny, in for a pound, no turning back, right? We experience struggle, okay. Well, we also, in addition to meeting some kind of a foe, we have helpers. We always have people along the way who will help us. So then this thing happens. We end up with transformation. We end up with a gift, and we end up changed, and we have this opportunity to go home. It's quite natural to imagine that when we encounter our first struggle, we'll say, never mind. I think I like things the way they were. This is too hard. We might try to turn around and go back. But we meet help, and the help encourages us to keep going. So let's say you stuck it out, you used your affirmations and your denials, you accepted help from people, every self-help book and guru along the way, and whatever you did, and you experienced some transformation, right? You've gotten a gift of some sort, and you're feeling changed. You're a new you, or as Daniel Namad would say, welcome to a different me. And then you think, I don't know, do I really want to go home? This is the perfect time of year to think about that. Some of you may have already done this. Did you go home to see your family of origin for Thanksgiving? Or did you spend that holiday with your family of choice? Or have you found a way to blend the two, which is awesome? There's this point in the hero's journey when you've had experienced the transformation and you got the gift and you're changed and you're thinking, ain't no way I want to go back home. But here's the thing. We all have 3 basic human needs. One of them is connection. Another one is belonging. And another one, in the words of the original research, is intimacy. I like to say closeness because I don't want to confuse anyone. Right? We need each other. So what happens if you say, no way, that's way too hard for me to hold on to that transformation and keep the gift and maintain and be true to the way I have changed and still go home? I'm not doing it, okay? That's understandable. And if you can find a way, this is one of the holiest parts of this cycle, of completing this cycle. You might have to learn a different language. Think about it. You come back home, I'm the baby of my family, and I turned 60 on my last birthday. And do you know how hard it is for all of us to think of me as anything other than the baby of the family, no matter how old I am, right? It's like that. And yet, if you can find a way to come back home to your family, home to home, as the transformed person, with the gift, the changed individual, learn a new language, get over the codependence, rock the boat, be yourself, share what you found. Do you know how much hope you give to those who haven't left home yet? Do you know how many things you have to give to those people who waited for you to come back. You know that this is a myth, so this is metaphorical. And yet what I'm saying is, if you decide to just hang out and keep to yourself with your transformation and your gift and your changed self, and not bother trying to give it back to your people, you'll miss the connection and the belonging and the closeness, and they will miss the transformation that only you can tell them is possible. They will miss the gift that only you found and experienced for real. They'll miss the example of a person who has changed and found a way to come back home and give it to their people. I think that this is worth doing. So, this journey promises to do all of these things for us. It's happening every single day when we either get out of bed or choose not to. Get up early or put it off. Get off the couch or stay on it. Walk out the door or stay in and keep the blinds closed. You see? Everybody's experiencing it. You may also think that you don't have what it takes to do this. But of course you do, because Spirit, Creator, the I Am principle, the all that is, made you to live in this world. Equipped. It's called equipping leadership. Everything that you need to know and all the support you require is included in the world in which you live and the design of you, so you are capable. One last teacher I want to share with you about is Dr. Christiane Northrup. And actually, I confess I did not read the whole book. I watched something on PBS about this. She had written another book about the mother-daughter relationship. And she talks about this, the whole cycle of gestation and birth, but specifically about being born. That's what I wanted to share with you today. When we move through the birth canal, our capacities are triggered. Our DNA is triggered to prepare us for the world that we are entering. So everything that we need to know and be is activated and prepared, and we are prepared before we are born into that world. So think about that. When you left home metaphorically and went on your latest journey that was about career or relationship or gender identity or being the writer you've always wanted to be or joining politics or whatever it was, learning a language or an instrument, what happens is that on your journey from home back to home, you are triggered. And all of the capacities that you require in order to be successful on that journey are in you. They're latent. They get triggered, and you discover things about yourself you didn't know were there. Strengths and gifts. And yes, when I spoke about chemicalization, all the other stuff comes up too. All of you who ever learned about affirmations and or spiritual mind treatment here at this center, you know that often when you declare something, the first thing that happens is that its opposite comes up. So I encourage you to understand this journey, embrace this journey. Whenever you realize that it's happening for you, say yes when change rings your doorbell. And know that whoever you need to be and whatever you require as you go on this journey, it will rise up from within you, it will show up around you, and you will be transformed. You will receive gifts. You will be changed. And you will find a way, you will know how to bring it back home to your people. So that is my final word to you today. Whatever that is for you, go out there and get the gift and know that you are supported. And come back home and share it with your people. The people you live with, the people you work with. Are there children who need to hear this message in your unique way? Are there young men who might have a different response to life other than violence with an automatic weapon if they only knew who they really were, what life is really about? Is there someone to whom you are an ally who needs to know this to give them strength in their journey of authenticity? We need this, and each of us has an individual way to share it with the world. So open your mind, see what you find, and bring it on home to your people. Thank you.